Do you want to know how to stop worrying about adult children? Well, we're going to talk about that. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and good communication and how to build strong family bonds all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about your adult children. Do parents ever really stop worrying about their children? Probably not. We love them so much, we care about them, we pray for them, and there are little bits inside where we worry, but we do have to, for their health and for ours, learn how to stop worrying to the point that it's getting in the way. And so we're going to talk about that in this video. How can worrying get in the way of a relationship? A child feels it. They know when you're worrying about them. It feels good to know that somebody cares, but then there comes a point where it feels like that person might be overstepping a little bit. It may even feel like they don't trust you. And we shouldn't be giving that message to our children, that we don't trust them. And I would think the majority of parents who worry about their children are not wanting to give that message, but it could come through that way. We do trust our children, so what we need to do is we need to be able to shut off a little bit of that worry and trust that they can handle things now that they're adults. We also have to be okay with the fact that they could, and probably will, make some mistakes along the way. As perfect as we would love them to be, and as we already maybe even think they are, they're not going to do everything perfectly. They're going to test a few things out, have some bumps and bruises with relationships and other things along the way, but they'll make it through all the better because we did not try to control everything for them. So how exactly do we shut off this worry faucet that seems to be pouring into our minds and hearts all the time? The first thing that we can do is we can look to history. We can say, wait, here we are. We actually have made it through all of these adult experiences. We didn't have to have everybody do it for us. In fact, we have gone through parenting. The hardest thing ever is parenting, because that is where you have to use this extreme amount of faith. There's a ton of trial and error. We have to control ourselves more than we can ever expect to control them. There are so many things that we go through in that parenting journey. And we've been through that already, to the point now that the child is an adult. We trusted ourselves to go through that. We need to trust them too, that now they can start going on that journey and learn. Now, I know that there are some things that get us afraid. There's a lot of junk happening in the world. There are people trying to hijack the minds of the young people. Honestly, I used to revere college professors and what was taught on campuses. And I have to honestly say, many times I'm skeptical and questioning now. When I was young, I didn't even think of that. But because there is so much attempt to control the minds of our children, and I think that's one of the reasons that we worry, are they ready yet? Are they going to be able to make it through? So all the more reason, if your child is not an adult yet, or you still have some that are not adults yet, prepare them. Really prepare them to see all the world views, to see the differences between things so that they can make truly educated decisions. Teach them discernment. This is going to be very important. And when we look to the past and we recognize we turned out okay, then we have to trust that they have to go down this road too. But that doesn't mean that we have to be completely hands off. We can make sure that we set up regular talk times with our children. We just deliberately talk about, hey, let's have a regular time where we can just check up on each other, how we're doing. That's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for them. They want to know how you're doing. You want to know how they're doing. It could be daily. It could be weekly. Figure out what works for your relationship. There are some children that might not be as much talkers, or they might want a little bit more space to kind of figure things out on their own. In that case, make sure that your talk time is a little bit less, a little bit more sporadic. But if you've got a really strong relationship, the child's launching off doing all kinds of things on their own, and they really don't need you to be telling them a ton of advice, then sure, talk each day about what's happening. But make sure that you don't overload on your opinions or advice. advice if it's not really welcome by them, because that's not good for your relationship. And there is another video all about what to do if they're pulling away from family, if adult children are pulling away from family. If you're having that type of issue, be sure to consult that video. One of the biggest things that you can do is, besides that faith and that trust, is to pre-teach about what's coming. So talk about how things are going to change, what the difference is going to look like, and how you are going to accept it. You need to make your child a promise that you are going to be okay. Even though it's going to be different, it's going to be hard. Trust me, I just became an empty nester like a year ago, and I'm still adjusting to it a bit. It's different. It's really different, and you have to decide to just carry on with other things in your life instead of always reaching out to the children all the time. But as you pull back a little bit, I'll tell you what happens. They start reaching out to you. But if you're reaching out all the time, it becomes a burden, and they don't ever get the opportunity to reach out to you. So pull back a little bit. That's okay. And tell yourself it's okay. Even if something happens to them, it's okay. So let's talk about worry, okay? There are skills, by the way, that we're going to discuss here in a moment, one in particular that's going to help you. But let's just discuss the worry first. When you feel worried inside your head, there is a thought that you experience right after you feel worried. So maybe it's something like, oh, something had happened, or I wonder if they remembered, or whatever it is. There's a thought that is in your head, and that thought is maybe a controlling thought, and that's why you are reaching out. Or maybe you're not reaching out at all, but that thought has a negative component to it. So what you probably should do is recognize what the thought is. So when you feel worried, then there's this thought that happens. And it's a microsecond. You hardly even know it. Is the thought positive or is the thought negative? If you continue to worry, then the thought is probably negative. The way to help your worry emotions and feelings is for you to change the thoughts. Be optimistic, be hopeful about the child. Instead of looking at the negative, look at the positive inside. So when you feel a little bit worried or anxious about something that you know the child's engaged in, maybe they're doing an audition, or they're taking a big test, or they're interviewing for a new job or something like that, instead of consuming yourself with this negative thought of what if they don't, what if they don't, what if they don't, instead you could say they're going to do just fine. They're going to be great, and it's going to be a great experience no matter what happens. It's going to be great. It's a learning experience. So go with something positive, go with something hopeful, something that you can have faith in. Find yourself a principle associated with that particular thought and moment so that you can push yourself in a positive direction. So now let's talk about skills. There's 4 basic skills for self-government. There's 5 teaching styles, which are 5 other skills. All of these skills can be used on yourself, as well as you can use the skills with your children when you teach them in a parenting capacity. And even when your children are adults, you can use the principles behind these skills. But there's one in particular that I would like to bring your attention to today, and that is the skill of accepting a no answer. You have to give yourself a no answer when you feel that feeling of anxiety or worry boil up about your child. You need to say, okay, that's anxiety or that's worry. I've identified it. Now, no, self, it's okay. Trust them. It's okay. And you need to be able to keep calm and then drop the subject. So the steps to accepting no answer are to look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay or ask to disagree appropriately, and then to drop the subject. When you choose to say it's going to be okay, they'll be fine, and to not worry, they feel something different from you, even if they're not there with you. They feel that you let them go it alone, that you let them learn, that you trusted them. They feel it. It makes a difference for them. It will actually impact your relationship for the better to not worry about your child so much. Do they need to know you care? Yes. Do you need to pray for them sometimes? Yes. Daily. Do it. Always. But what does the worry do to the relationship? It can hurt it. It gives the feeling that you don't trust. So instead, try to tell yourself to let that go. to drop that subject and tell yourself another truth that can be beneficial, and your connection to your child will improve. You might be trapping yourself with just the way that you've wired yourself to process that worry. There might be other traps that I can help you with too. There's a video that I highly recommend that you watch next, and it's called The Expectation Trap versus the Cycle for Success. This video will talk about how you trap yourself in your communications with other people and in the expectations for your days and outcomes, and what you can do to be successful. So click on the link to that video now. I'll see you there.